Hello, ladies and gents. Welcome to a new episode of your Frederish podcast. My name's Gary, and here I am once again. Today, we're going to talk about something everyone, I believe, is familiar with, or everyone will be able to relate to it. Because if you were not familiar with that, if you never thought about you having this problem, maybe at the end of this episode you might change your mind. Yeah, so if you're afraid of changing your mind and learning that you're a master procrastinator or something fairly close to that, maybe you shouldn't stay to the end of this episode. Of course, I'm kidding. This is not meant to get you feel guilty or anything like that, but let's not pretend that this topic, that this thing isn't real in the world today, because it was always real. It always existed, but today I dare to say that is more common than it's ever been before. So join me in this conversation, because today we're talking about procrastination. I've been procrastinating this episode, but still time. Let's do it. Of course, I'm joking. I never thought about doing this topic before. I just thought it this week. So it's not a procrastination technically. But I must admit, I almost had to record this video on Monday. Today is a Friday, chilly Friday, no sun. I mean, not a sunny day, fairly cold. So perfect for you to listen to this episode, buy a cup of hot chocolate or coffee or tea. But as I always say, whatever it takes for you to relax, and let's go without further ado. Alright, so I'm pretty aware that everyone here knows what procrastination means, and more than that, knows what procrastination is, and even going a little further, knows exactly what it feels like procrastinating. That is basically, in case you still don't know the meaning, I should congratulate you, but procrastinate basically means postpone. So instead of doing something the moment you prepared to do, you had scheduled to do it, or you were supposed to do it, or you really had to do it, you just save it for later. You just don't do that at that specific moment, but you seek to do it later on, the next day, the next week. This is procrastination. So let's try to figure out what are the roots of this habit, because make no mistake, this is nothing but a habit. Okay, and if you still haven't read book Power of Habit, which I recommended like 1,000 times here in this podcast, I will recommend for the 1,001st. All right, the 1,001st time, do read that book. Okay, because as I said, I will repeat, procrastination is nothing but a habit. Okay, and if you read this book, you will understand more about the habits. What are the origins of a habit? How they get established inside our head, basically, and what are the best tools for us to get rid of them. Okay, of course there are good habits and bad habits, but procrastination is certainly part of the latter. Okay, that is part of the bad habits. Okay, so one interesting thing to keep in mind right away at the very beginning of this episode is that procrastination is mostly related to the famous and often referred to comfort zone. We're one of the main habits we established, as human beings, is a comfort zone, right? Oh, I don't have a comfort zone. I'm a person who loves taking risks. I can't stand still. I'm always looking for something new. You have a comfort zone, okay? Perhaps your comfort zone is smaller than the average. Judging by these words I said, I would judge that this person is this person's comfort zone is way smaller, way shorter than the average, right? But you still have a comfort zone. That's human, okay? So this is the thing. All right, okay. About the comfort zone, let me just say before I keep going on this, that the reason why I recorded this episode is because years ago I watched and rewatched it 100 times, using that in my English classes, to practice English, of course, but also to address such an important topic. But a TED Talk, if you don't know what a TED Talk is, Google it, please. TED Talk, as in conversation. TED Talk. A TED Talk by American humorist, I guess, or blogger, or both, I don't know, named Tim Urban. Okay, Tim, Tim Urban, Urban. Okay, it's a hilarious and at the same time quite informative a lecture about procrastination. It's called Inside the Mind of a Master of Procrastination, or something fairly close to that. Okay, Inside the Mind of a Master Procrastinator, or Master of Procrastination, basically presenting himself as the king of procrastination. And more than that, and of course by that making the crowd laugh out loud, but more importantly than that, he invites us inside his own head, explaining or trying to understand and explain us the reasons, the factors, the feelings, or using metaphors that he used, the monsters and animals inside his own head that were causing or reinforcing the habit of procrastination. It's a very interesting TED Talk. So I really recommend you watch that. If you can want to pause this episode right now and go watch that on YouTube, do that, okay? But just come back here, because I got a lot of interesting things to complement on what Mr. Urbans is just said in his lecture. All right. So yeah, going back to the comfort zone, I think that the comfort zone thing is like, it's a survival mechanism. Okay. I'm just giving my opinion here, guys. I'm not saying that this is science or anything, okay? But probably there you guys will find something if you start reading or getting curious about this topic, or at least you're gonna find out that something I'm saying here is not exactly accurate. But I believe that the comfort zone is a survival mechanism, okay? Because, well, everyone knows that if you start putting yourself in risk every day, right, sooner or later things will go wrong, okay? The immediate example that comes to my mind are these parkour guys in France, all right? The guys are literally jumping from very high, like deadly high buildings, from one rooftop to the other, okay, to record videos on YouTube. Well, honestly, I never heard of any deaths or seriously injuries, but I'm pretty sure if a human being falls from that high place, it is fatal or something close to that. Okay, person gets invalidated. I don't know if that's the best word to use, but you know what I'm trying to say here. So if you start putting yourself in jeopardy, this is an interesting word, okay? Jeopardy, and the verb jeopardize, okay? Let me spell it for you. Jeopardy, jeopardy, okay? It's a quite unusual word, and the verb is jeopardize. Same thing, but I-Z-E at the end, okay? It basically means to endanger, to put something or someone in risk, okay? So if you start jeopardizing, what I'm trying to say about comfort zone, everyone knows that if you start jeopardizing yourself, putting yourself into dangerous situations, quite often, sooner than later, you're gonna get hurt, to say the least, all right? Hopefully, these parkour guys in France do not do these things every day, every week, all right? I really hope so. I don't really want any of them to get hurt because they're pretty talented. We must say that. They have pretty good condition, so they could be making money. They're probably making money from the videos, from the views, but they could. What I'm trying to say is that they could be making money in a way safer way, right? And worse than that, if you wanna being specific about the parkour guys, this is a personal opinion, guys. You don't have to agree with me, but I think that okay, putting your lives in jeopardy, yeah, risking your life, it's something, but you may risk somebody else's life, because what if you fall from a 20-story building right over, right on someone walking down there, right, or someone's dog, for example, or that's hard. That's not okay. All right, if you think of doing that, please, and you want my word of advice as a friend here, don't do that. But going back to, so that's the reason why the comfort zone is so, our comfort zone, it's so, it's something so inside of us, so stuck to the inner of our nature, that we have it no matter how much of an adventurers we may be. All right. And then where does procrastination come in? Well, here I have to start making the references to Tim Urban's lecture, Tim Urban's TED Talk. He brings two figurative examples that are very, very interesting and cool for his procrastination. One he calls the instant gratification monkey. Okay, so instant gratification is one of the century's most prominent, the negative way, of course, habits we have. Okay, because today I grew up in the 20s. Here I go once again talking about the old days, but I'm a nostalgic person. That's the word I was looking for. But that's it. I grew up in the 20s, and if you're 30, in your early 30s, late 30s, or even older, you will remember that listening to music or listening to a specific song you just heard and you fell in love with that immediately wasn't something as practical and easy as today, right? Today, you hear a song, you just make sure you know the name of it, or you memorize a few words of the lyrics, out of the lyrics, and Google it, and boom, voila, you have it available for you to listen to it as many times as you can, as your free time allows you and your internet connection allows you, all right? So it's way easier than it was 20 years ago. So once, 20 years ago, we would listen to a song we loved, we would just stay to the end of the track of the radio, all tracks play, so we would have the name of, at the end of, you're old enough, you remember, at the end of the tracks selection, I don't know if that's the correct way to say that, but like the group of the songs that, the group of songs that were played before the endorsers, right, before the ads come in, the radio guy would say, hey, this is a song by blah blah blah, this is a Beat It by Michael Jackson. They would just name out the songs and the artists. So you would have to stay at the end of it and write down or memorize. And then go look for the CD, or, sometimes you would have a freaking CD with 20 songs just because of one song. All right. And you think it was cheap. It was not cheap. I can tell you that. It was not cheap at all. Ask your parents if you're young, if you're in your 20s. They're gonna tell you better. But going back here. So the instant gratification is basically so strong today, so powerful, that because we have means to satisfy all our, or most of 99% of our natural instincts just in front of the computer. Music, love, entertainment, you name it, right? And as Tim Urban himself explains, the monkey gratification is always jumping in front of him. That's why he used a monkey as a metaphor. as a metaphoric figure there, is always jumping in front of him, basically in front of him, not in front of him, of his attention, right? Like he's supposed to do some work stuff, some important, some urgent stuff, but then he just thinks of a video he saw on YouTube, or he wants to see, or a song, or curiosity, and boom, there he goes, postponing the necessary things, right? So the instant gratification monkey is something we have to keep in our minds as an existing things, okay? So I think that if you allow me to make a suggestion here, of course, I would say that we should ask ourselves, and you should ask yourself, like, how much of these instant gratification actions am I doing every time before I have to sit, concentrate, focus 100% in the work stuff, in the necessary action there. Necessary is not fun, okay? Because yeah, what is necessary, what is urgent, it's not fun, you know? Let me just make an extra comment here. When I was a teenager, my dream was to become a professional musician. To be more specific, this is a more sophisticated version of my dream. To be more accurate, I wanted to be a star, all right? Why? Because I would just look around and go like, hey, these guys can do anything apart from making lots of money. They can do taking the average rock groups and hip hop groups, of course, they can do all the things I love to do, and that's their job. That is traveling, that is meeting people, going out with the prettiest girls. You know, in my case, that was my feel. Those were my feelings back in the days. But I just had the thing of this is the perfect life. You know, how come do they fight? How come, I would think, do bands split? You know, and I even forgot why I got here. Let me just think for a second. All right, well, I was just saying that what is necessary is not fun, and this is why I remember when I was a teenager, I not only wanted to be a star, but I didn't understand at all. It was like the craziest and most unexplainable things in the universe, that like artists being pretty successful, having the perfect quote unquote life, and having miserable lives in terms of psychological aspects, or even doing some things that I'm not gonna say here, but you guys know what I'm talking about, right? That was a big mystery, the biggest mystery for me back in the days. But today, 35 years old, 20 years later, I can pretty much understand. Like traveling, if it's a job, if it's a work thing, gets you stressed out. It's stressful. Having to play, which I love too, was one of the things. Like, hey, the guys play and make money. Come on, what are they complaining about? If you have to do that every day, like if it's a commitment, it's not as fun as it is when you do once a while, and we don't think of that. One of the things we don't do as human beings in general, 15-year-olds or 35-year-olds or even 55-year-olds, we don't usually see things like today. I'm not a rock star, of course. Thank goodness for that, because I can see the lots of stressful things involved, right? But that could be an episode apart, all right? But going back to what I'm saying, what is necessary is not fun, okay? That's why we procrastinate, because we don't procrastinate over leisure, okay? Over entertainment. We procrastinate at work, at things that are necessary. Again, because they're not fun. They're not exciting, okay? Sometimes they can be fun. That's a different thing, okay? But being fun all the time, simply isn't like that. The second metaphoric creature that Tim Urban mentions in his speech, in his lecture, in his TED Talk, um, is the panic monster. Okay, because, and I'm not gonna spoil much. You will certainly watch this video, but of course, it happens that we procrastinate. Every procrastinator knows that there is a point where you feel like the deadline is close, okay, and you still haven't done much progress on whatever it is they have to do. And then that's where the panic monster comes in. You just flip. You sit down and you start doing it with the twice as much energy, like the double of energy necessary that you should be used at the very beginning. So you start crazy, like doing it crazy and running, hurrying up, and this quite often ends up in disaster or in low quality deliveries, so to say. All right. And I would like you to reflect upon these two things. Okay, what are your instant gratification monkeys, and how often do you come to, metaphorically of course, look in the eyes of the panic monster? How often do you get to go like, oh my goodness, I better hurry up, I gotta do that, no way, I'm gonna lose this deadline, I'm gonna miss this deadline. Because the more contact you have with the panic monster, the worse the situation is, right? And I have a few, if you stay here till this point, I have a few tips for you to, if you classify yourself as a procrastinator, if you hadn't classified yourself before, but after listening to what I've just said here, now you understand, hey, oh my gosh, perhaps I am a procrastinator myself. I have a few words of advice here, so stick with me, so stick with me to the end of this episode, and I'm just gonna say them. So tip number 1, break tasks into smaller steps. Large tasks can feel overwhelming. Break them down into smaller, more manageable parts. This makes starting less daunting and gives you a clear path forward. Yeah, this is so true, right? If you're new at being productive, I'm gonna put it this way. If you don't consider yourself a productive person, and we have to be honest here, either you are a productive person or not. There's no midterms here, right? I believe you shouldn't push yourself too hard. You shouldn't just get your, like, I'm gonna be productive from now on, so let me see what are my top 5 targets in life, and just start with the hardest one. You should start with the smallest one, and the smallest one literally, and then, as the tip number 1 goes here, break it into smaller parts. That's gonna make the process easier. Okay, I'm not gonna give you more example. Perhaps we can make one episode just about this, but I think you have read the picture. 2, set specific goals. Establish a daily schedule to help build a habit. Consistency can make it easier to get started and stay on track. Yeah, that's it. As I said, read Power of Habit. Okay, if you haven't read the book, read it. Oh my gosh, I have to read. You recommended the reading of this book in English for me to practice, and I am afraid. Okay, so read it in Portuguese for that matter. Okay, the message is the same. Tip number 3, use the Pomodoro technique. Work for 25 minutes, then take a 5-minute break. This can help maintain focus and give your brain a rest. Okay, if you never heard about the Pomodoro technique, it is basically you divide your work hours into 25 minutes working, 5 minutes resting, doing nothing, doing whatever you want. Okay, there are studies pointing that this technique is pretty efficient, maybe pretty efficient. I think you should give it a shot. Okay. 4, create a routine. Establish a daily schedule to help build a habit. Consistency can make it easier to get started and stay on track. Yeah, this is a compliment from tip number 3. Tip number 5, eliminate distractions. Identify what typically distracts you and find ways to minimize or eliminate those distractions during work periods. Let me tell you guys, if you don't know, if you haven't visualized a distraction when I read these words, let me tell you one. I don't know you, I don't know who you are, but I am 100% sure that social medias are a big distraction, okay? Myself, for example, I love watching YouTube videos. So the YouTube algorithms know me very well. So they know exactly what I'm going to enjoy, what I'm going to love watching. And the same happens to you, of course. I'm saying me, but it happens to everybody. So perhaps if you're about to do something really, really important, you should avoid opening YouTube, because there's 100% chances of there being a video, a thumbnail as they call, that will force you to click it open, and voila, what did you have to do again? You forgot. So yeah, okay. So make sure you avoid the distractions when you are about to do something important. Number 6. Set deadlines. Create personal deadlines for tasks, even if they're not required by others. This can create a sense of urgency. Another pretty important thing that almost nobody does. You should have your own deadlines, okay? But don't make don't just disrespect them because they are your own deadlines. No. Make this a personal challenge to meet the deadlines, to be inside your own deadlines, all right? 7, use number 7, use positive reinforcement. Reward yourself when you complete tasks. This can be a small treat, a break, or anything that feels like a reward to you. Yeah, this works too, okay? Make sure you treat yourself, make sure you have a reward every time you meet a deadline, every time you finish a project, okay? The bigger the glory, the bigger the treat. That's what I tell you. Number 8, visualize the end result. Spend some time imagining the benefits of completing your tasks and the satisfaction that they will bring. This can boost motivation. Not only boost motivation, ladies and gentlemen, there are studies saying that visualizing the final path, the glories of the end of the work, basically, or project or task, whatever, helps you achieving, helps you getting there, okay? Again, this is something that we can make a whole episode out of it, but that's what I say for now. Number 9, find an accountability partner. Share your goals with someone who can check in on your progress. Sometimes knowing that someone else is aware of your goals can increase motivation. Yeah, this works a lot, okay? I've done that before and the results are phenomenal. Number 10, tackle the hardest task first, known as eating the frog. This strategy involves starting with the most challenging or important tasks. Once it's done, the rest may feel easier by comparison. Okay, you have to be careful because like I said that at the beginning of this list, that you should start with the smallest one. Yeah, if you're a beginner, okay? If you're a beginner. If you're not a beginner, totally go for this. Do the hardest thing, the hardest task on your day, on your daily to-do list. Go for it, okay? But once you're doing great, once you're just flying with the whole thing. Number 11, practice self-compassion. Don't beat yourself up for procrastinating. Acknowledge it, learn from it, and refocus. Being too harsh on yourself can lead to more procrastination. What I always like to say, guys, if you're driving a car, if you want to be a good driver, and then all of a sudden you slip, let's put it this way, and the car goes to the sideway, for a few yards, for a few meters, what do? Wouldn't you pull it back gently to the correct way? Or you just would go like, oh, whatever, and throw it in the cliff, throw it off the cliff, just because you just made a small mistake, a small slip up, so to say. Of course, you choose the first option. Of course, you go back. So that's what it. You slip, you stand up, metaphorically speaking, and keep walking. You got out of the road, you bring the car back to the road and move on. Don't keep beating yourself, all right? We have this horrible habit ourselves too as Brazilians. There's a word for it in English, commiseration. Commiserating ourselves, like patting ourselves on, pushing buttons, to make us feel guilty or sad about mistakes we made in the past. Mistakes in the past need to be things you learn from, not things you mistreat yourself about, all right? Especially for a long time. Things happened 10 years ago and you're still beating yourself up. Come on, wake up, man. We all do respect. Number 12, adjust your environment. Make sure your work environment is conducive to productivity. This might mean a tidy workspace, good lighting, or having the right tools handy. It says it all. Number 13 and last one, seek professional help if needed. Yeah, man, if you just notice that this is causing you real trouble. It's not a matter of your boss telling you off or being upset with you here and there, or friends, complaining about you being late all the time. You go out for a beer or whatever. If it's deeper than that, if it's beyond that, don't hesitate in looking for professional help. Okay, this is really, really important. This is really, really serious. This is a podcast for a little bit of entertainment, of course, but mostly for practicing English. So I don't have any means to give you more advice. Don't just stay here. If you feel like you need more, go for more, okay? With, of course, a licensed and worthy trust professional, of course. This is it for this episode, ladies and gents. Thank you so very much for your lovely and wonderful, and I appreciate so much. Thank you again. See you in the next episode. Bye.